was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, than in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer, just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. That epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale. A tale which was now about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from her homeland. Suppose they didn't kick us out of the country, to be honest. Like, we're here on the study tour, but then you can't go into court. Like, okay. Okay. What a delicious smell wafting up the seas. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite. Say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. Oh, Bruno, good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I have a surprise this morning. Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just a truce thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation-repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Warning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes. I see. Bruh! Why? Oh, classic, honestly. Oh, you got the thingo back, did you? The analysiscope. Oh. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have this very morning met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course, though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. It has. button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. What did you do? Hurley pulled your button off. Ah yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped! Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder then in my vexation, I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. It's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Hurley, Bruno said that when he came in, didn't he? We had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire. The famous consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Sholmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it gets cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, as published in Rance magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Well, I received a letter from Japan. So from Susie, you mean? What is it? Really? That's right. She had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us about it over breakfast. Oh yes, what fun! This is a letter that arrived from Japan this morning, by international post. Oh, how lovely! Look at Susie's beautiful handwriting. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, I may ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Really? Isn't she wonderful? I can't above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do. We helped the man twice. You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago? Ah, the mustache twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. He didn't have 2 mustaches, Hurley. Wait, did he actually say that? Oh. Yes, who could forget those 2 cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now, clearly. A very deep impression they made on you, clearly. So, what was this startling news penned by Mr. Sato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes. It's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten them. Anyway, in her letter, Mr. Sato asked that we read over case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago, for what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Nutsmith said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. On Mr. Nutsmith's return to Japan, Mr. Sato's father questioned him about the case, she says. Something Mr. Nutsmith said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case, yes! It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. And Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? It was very mean. The story must not be published, you said. Very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that. Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Mrs. Sato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No, it just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead! But according to this letter, the news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so she'd make the voyage back home. Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Mr. Sato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? Oh, well, what can I say? Who can say? You said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And the stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive of you, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man, the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. Scuttled off rather quickly there. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. I found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case? That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Bruno? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I've no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. I was not expecting this music for this. That's the spirit! And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in court that followed. Reliving every detail. I just need to find a clue. And I have all the time in the world. Because of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. But what the heck have we been doing for 4 months? Loitering? It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but when she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attacker, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. There you are at last! Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh! You're late! What on earth took you so long? The telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I've been waiting for what feels like an eternity. Point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by the telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat just that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back. Her name is... Ah yes, here we are. Miss Green. Well, before we talk to Miss Green, yes, I put on the DLC outfits on because I felt like it. Because they're only available for the second game, so I thought it'd be fun to show them off. Although I didn't put them on for the first case because Susato's meant to be dressing up as a guy, and if she was in that get-up, she would have been caught, so thought that would have ruined the immersion. Made that mistake the first time, and it took me a while to realise. Oh wait, she's in the wrong outfit. Whoops. Anyway, let's talk to Miss Green. Good morning. Hello, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan.
Oh no, was it your knife? Are you the man who...
No, I'm a lawyer. I'm Susato Mikotoba. Pleased to meet you.
Oh no, was it your knife then? Are you the one?
Lawyer, I assure you, I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you've regained consciousness and wanted to come to give you our best wishes.
Best wishes for me? Oh, thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to become an artist. The truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back.
I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green.
So cold that day. The fog was so thick. I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've become comatose all that time.
The case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in hospital, I mean.
Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly, by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes. Don't take all the credit. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in court that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green?
Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming in to fill me in shortly.
Oh, I see.
Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. So sorry. I should have never regained consciousness. It was selfish of me.
Oh no! I'm so relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are! That kind of attitude. Maybe your surname should be Blue, not Green. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green?
Oh no! No, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really. At the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts.
Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts! Great Britain is such a wonderful country! Has its shadows, but never mind. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts?
Oh no, actually, don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road.
I see. Very interesting.
Oh no, is it?
Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here. The Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton town centre. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not. Borough Road is far less salubrious part of town by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young, fine art student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She suddenly clammed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself prying into a young maiden's private affairs. Oh, now she's rousing Sholmes about privacy. Ha 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 ha! Oh dear me, do forgive me.
If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things.
Yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Should we snoop? Feels weird. Do we even have anywhere else to go, though? Investigating what? We're just seeing if she's alright, right? Oh, this feels weird. Alright, this looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed. What is this place, a zoo?
No, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park.
For the pigeons, yes, this is a person! Oh, woman, I hope she hasn't read this. This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it?
I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses.
Really? It's not exactly what you call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? Hey.
No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before.
Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Yes. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here.
Yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman.
He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? Oh my, Mr. Naruhodo. I didn't know you had a sense for matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Is there a Mr. Naruhodo here? Mr. Naruhodo! Naruhodo now? If you're looking for Naruhodo, the lawyer, that's me, but... Ah, Mr. Naruhodo! Good. This is for you. It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutmeg.
Mr. Nutmeg sent a message to me! But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Nutmeg?
Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? Ah! What are you waiting for? Let me see that! Ah! Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? You sniped it from me. Good. It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. The trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That would be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. What?
I'll hire a fiacre at once.
It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address. He may well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time, but we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. Ooh. What on earth? Oh, not the guy we met.
The gentleman is deceased without question. He's dead.
Nobody care to check for a pulse?
I can see Mr. Naruto Esquire.
Mr. Natsume.
What? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court. Yesterday, I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up to the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle.
I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache.
Ah! Not the horrible hairlock Sholmes. Shoo, shove off. Show yourself to the door! I never invited you!
Mr. Sholmes came here with us. Quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Here they are, already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson, what a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. That gives you heartburn. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. That too. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Oh, good morning to you too, sunshine. Oh dear. Let's investigate the obvious, shall we? Oi, I said hands off. You're gonna mess up my crime scene. Your crime scene? No, I just wanted to look, that's all. No chance. Oh, I know you're kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Alright, it sounds like I better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favour. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shamsby. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss as it happens. Or just dead. Mr. Shamsby. He was a landlord old Mr. Garrideb and the other lodger, Mr. Nutsmere, who found Natsume. The fella didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garrideb got worried and kicked the door down. But doesn't Mr. Garrideb have a bad leg? Yeah, you're right there. It was a jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san? The victim was pretty hard up, it seems. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, and no friends. His only acquaintances were people in this house. Miserable life and a miserable end to it. So, what exactly is Mr. Nutsmere still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying this because the fellow looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious. But I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the habitat. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you?
Oh dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again.
Certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he?
Oh man, how unfortunate.
Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fella's been a goner that long. The body's still warm.
Even if the inspector would allow it,
I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Oh. Was it our intention? No. What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences. So, the victim lived here on the ground floor. And your room is just 1 story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbours, I suppose. So, did you know the victim? Were you friends?
What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. Did he ever invite me into his room? Never! On my honor, I swear it! What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? When we found him, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. For that inspector over there!
Dude, what are you doing? Mr. Shyams, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know, my dear fellow. Posing. Investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose.
Mr. Shyams, have you made some miraculous discovery?
Patience, my dear madam, patience. We've not been in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened.
My goodness!
Sure.
Isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Shyams?
Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could indeed see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first is that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Ah! Mr. Nutsmere, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No, don't mind me. Forget I was here. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! Alright, Mr. Nutsmere, why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions? No, please, pretend I'm not here! Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant! Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail! But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. I've had some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this one will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time? So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates use of poison. You didn't do it, did you? Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. I would hope he wasn't eating it. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. But the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end, he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Soap and the lather about the young man's mouth. Too perfect match to ignore. Yeah. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. So hungry you could eat soap, apparently. Ooh. The heavy topics. The cause of death identified. We proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man die and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meagre evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Someone kicked the door, why wouldn't it have come from that? Though forced open now at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end in tragic solitude. We could take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? I mean, like, at least Soseki wouldn't have to get accused again. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes's Great Deduction. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruto? Hey, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing. To one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary. In truth, I've tried a little soap myself in the past. Well, you've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut. Did it? It arrived in agony on the floor and split the contents of my stomach. Yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It's an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. What's that? It's Mr. Nutsmere. Ah! I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. Nonsense! Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. Judging by Mr. Nutsmere's reaction, the great detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions. Discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Sherlock Holmes's Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Did I miss something?
Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks.
Of course, only half of the bar soap is left on the plate.
Might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate soap?
Not much to go on. Well, what's this other piece of soap? Is this a perfect half?
Look, there's some more soap on the floor here.
Mr. Shamsby must really love that stuff.
Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Noddlehoddle. Look closely at this soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table?
But how could that be?
I think they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart.
Well, he didn't need it, because we have the whole.
Take that!
Ooh. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. It was obvious, really. No depths of hunger could drive any human to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. That begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then.
Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it.
If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all.
Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it?
Nope. Yes, a Western vessel for the serving of infusions of dried tea leaves.
It's a teacup, Mr. Noddlehoddle, as you well know.
Stop putting on airs and padding your word count.
And it's empty.
So, we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, significant evidence to suggest he was drinking tea.
Thoughts exactly.
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed! Cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. Supposedly. Makes a lot more sense than licking soap. The cause of death identified. We proceed to Act 2. We will ponder the next question. Is this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man die and dine alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. The Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deduction so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamsby was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me is Mr. Nutsmith's reaction when he heard Mr. Shum suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. I must closely examine the scene of the crime again for more clues. Another teacup. It's another one. It's a teacup! It too is empty. Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand, I can assume that this is the cup from which Mr. Shamsby was actually drinking. But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yes, I know exactly how we feel. Uh-oh.
Take that!
Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 cups in this room all along. Ah. In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's last supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, drinking tea with the victim. What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable! To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back into the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. You can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Suppose not. Time to look around again. At first glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and Meal for Gabriel. I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Nutsmith purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them, that's right. And now those 3 titles are here in the room of the victim. And Mr. Nutsmith claims to have never been in here before. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. Pile of familiar books.
Take that!
Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's not a mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's a link to the truth. Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop. Coincidence! In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No! Never! Non-negotiable! You can't bring your own copies here. It proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have bought the books here on that evening. But you never mentioned that. In other words, you could only have bought these 3 books here to the victim's room, brought. Okay. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded, the Old Bailey. In short, there's only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in his room last night as a result of poisoning. That same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume! Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' Great Deduction. Soseki Natsume is seen. Hey, we never said he did the do, but he was indeed there. Perhaps he saw something? Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. What? Hold your horses! Yes. Door! Key! Locks! Entry! Exit! Entirely impossible! So Flossie's being even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. Huh? You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Herlock Sholmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Look at you, Mr. Narod, Esquire! I never want to be in this position again, Mom. You have to help me, please! I'm innocent! I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing! Yes? My poor little kitty cat! Please give him his breakfast for me! And so, His evil curse still apparently unbroken. Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you! Oh, now I get the credit. At least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. I can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course. What? Oh, sorry, what? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamsby. Mr. John Garadeb, yes. Expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. I'm just gonna... Don't mind me, sir. This isn't weird. What's this? Looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope in fact is there. She's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. You better take this just in case. It's obvious loose floorboard, but we can't investigate it. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. Strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property. It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh! What is it, Mr. Sato? If you look closely, a number of bricks are loose. Yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsby who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room. Look at this, Mr. Nodahodo. On the outside there's a little ledge. There's something on it. Outside. It's so cold outside. You can really feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. More importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. The pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, it's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window? I think perhaps we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. What's this? Look here at this soap. Ah! Do you see in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different colour. It's sort of transparent, but... some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful! The Sun Circle. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? What is it doing in this ramshackle old room? think it's opportune to investigate that pink bar of soup. Still have some leftover evidence from the last case. That's cool. This part is a different colour. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinomaru design of the Japanese flag. I suspect this is rather expensive soap. Doesn't seem likely given who it belongs to. Oh. C'est étrange. Poor man, so young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder... Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? Make sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Oh, this is gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. I see. Yes, now you've pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean, if you put a coin in here... It's right, that would buy you about 2 hours of gas for light and heating. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold. Yes, if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, gas stove. Stove? London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I recall seeing a gas stove up there. I much prefer a real fire anyway. So much cozier. Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim shady going-ons. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? Oh, I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think it'd be more suited to a feudal lord, a daimyo or such like. The chonmage topno. Every Japanese man wishes he had a chonmage. Oh, you look wonderful with one. You already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chonmage and a sword? Oh, right. I don't think there's much more I can click on. We just got this end of an envelope. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. Judging from the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed. It's Susato. I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventure of Sherlock Holmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never! Obsessed! Okay. Candle. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day! I'll think about it if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Look, if that would help you achieve your goal... Oh, this I have to see. Oh yeah. She's played the role of a man before. Who's to say she can't do it again? Anyway. What am I supposed to check now? Oh, the teacup. One of the teacups that Mr. Shamsby and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's been a poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamsby's. The other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson! Back so soon! After I threw that little Japanese fellow in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in the cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Ouch, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale, told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed! Oh, happy day! Walking Dead! The fella isn't dead at all. What was that nonsense he was saying, though? Think. Yes, it's from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was. But the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. The man had indeed been poisoned. It transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. Another familiar face. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Nutsmith. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life! I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison as we deduced. But was it an accident? Attempted suicide? Or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police would keep Mr. Nutsmith in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. What's this? What's a man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me? Could we have a word? Oh, what? Ah! He just ran off. The fence is broken. I'm sure that we've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. It totally wasn't here, I guess. Only yesterday? Or like the day before, I guess, in this situation. Oh yeah, we got kicked out. What do we do now? We just click on random things again? Oh yeah, the soap is a lot more obvious now. With the exception of the top floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Garrett live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows. But the tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have work done. That is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Nutsmith, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. That's right, I believe we could visit the Garradibs for their perspective, right? Here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor brood. We're here because Mr. Garradeb's the one who discovered the incident this morning, don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It's quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garrideb as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garrideb. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Oh, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer.
And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door.
Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course.
Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by in that half an hour. It's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning.
Well, you know, better be safe than sorry and all that.
Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the other side of the door.
The victim's name is Mr. Shamsby, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamsby. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
How would you describe him?
In a word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose.
So hard to choose which category Seki-san will fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude.
Was doing research as well.
Research? Into what?
Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare! Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Oh, my favourite.
Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have been translated.
Seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there?
Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamsby would have much in common.
Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder.
Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo! Really? How rude!
You know what's also rude? After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. The failed actor chap was out at the time.
Mr. Garrideb noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose.
Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamsby got back. The chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end some time after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Thank you. It was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Mr. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrett, you are up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Well, then why are you shaking? And how did you know, Mr. Garadeb? It's the gas woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? Speaking gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. They dim? Why? It's the one supply. Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen though? Sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pumps in this part are pretty hopeless. Long worn out. I've barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they go brighter in the rest of the house. Right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out the lamps and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Garrett. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrett is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. We've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we should go to the prison and speak with Mr. Nutsmare again. Good idea! Oh, I think so.
Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now?
Look him shit, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire!
Yes?
What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes?
He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost.
What is diabolical deductions? They're not of this world. They've left me. Ah! Cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you!
Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction too.
Moving on, we have some wonderful news! Oh!
The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again.
Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder!
That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume?
That's terrible! I'm stuck in a cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick! You did it, didn't you? Confess! You were a killer! Why the mustache? Constant questions!
I'm sorry to hear that.
Ah, that selfish shyster! Make up your mind! Are you dead or alive? If you were to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William!
Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsby was never actually dead in the first place.
Ah yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased he's alive, of course. A lively debate last night was so much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Ooh. Whoops!
Mr. Natsume, does this mean you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsby, didn't you?
I'm not saying another word! I demand to have a lawyer present! Who do you think I am?
Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story.
Why am I cursed like this? As long as the Reaper's about.
Can you tell us what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume?
There's nothing to tell! But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday!
The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday.
Especially when the cases have been written like this. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening, at 9:30 it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsby.
So, you did go to the victim's room then? As we feed.
I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time!
What made you decide to go?
I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. He had to go out, so I bade him farewell.
That ties in with what Mr. Garrideb said, that the victim went out and came back after 8.
We met again later that evening, at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift.
So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then?
And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet! Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate.
I'm sure.
Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare! And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspeare's tea. No! Never! Not at all! Team Juliet won! That was me! And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was a fighting fit! I swear it categorically! Mr. Nutsmith, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've meant to mention this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now. And in that time, I've learned that it's no place for me. It'd be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. Foreigners everywhere I look. They all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. And even in my room, I know respite for my fears. I've moved more times than I care to remember. And then, 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money and spoke to me. Rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man. One morning, he was found dead. No one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books! And books cost money! A horrible history is a price to pay! When I realised it would mean I could buy more books, I signed a lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered? But after I moved in, I soon came to realise what I'd done. I realised how horrible the room's history really was! Gosh, was it really so awful? Horrible history. How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Nutsmith? What happened? First, it was just a feeling of beady eyes pouring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No, my mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. Nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who've died in that room, lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me! It really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too! The very same night that Mr. Shamspeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room! You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible! Yes, Yes, you're right. I know it. And that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to go home.
I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history.
Ah! Oh, Sato Song knows how to make the man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You mean Mr. Garadeb? Yes. He knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. That's true. I, for one, wouldn't want to go near the place.
Oh, perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps in his tenants' movements.
Because he's worried about their well-being. He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps?
It's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything.
Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. Oh, what's important is that Mr. Shamsby isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come round and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Inspector Gregson! I couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh. Which do you want for... Not this again. Never thought... Always! Every time! The bad news comes first! When hope is all you have, hold on to it! That's my guiding principle! Right, well, in that case, good news it is. Ha! Ha! Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Why'd you even ask? And why did you even ask me? As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamsby, was just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes. We saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume?
Oh my goodness, it's over. I can leave this somber cell. That's the bad news, isn't it? Sorry, no, that's not on the cards.
What? Why ever not, Inspector?
Mr. Shamsby has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh no. Sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed a finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Ah! A sweet poison did he seek it to end my life. A wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume. No! I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. Ah! And so, once more with feeling, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted, or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court, and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him.